like talking about comics. You want to just talk about comics again? Here are 5 stupid things I noticed about Marvel Comics. Its incredibly bloated main line. If you go to the Marvel website and browse their selection of currently published titles, you'll find 13 devoted to the X-Men or to various members of the X-Men or spin-off teams from the X-Men. You'll also find 5 Spider-Man titles and 9 Avengers titles, and that doesn't include the solo titles of the various members of the Avengers teams, plural. That's quite a stack of comics devoted to a relative handful of characters, many of whom also happen to be featured in high-profile film franchises at the moment. Would it be too cynical to speculate that the overabundance of X, Spidey, and Avengers titles is there in order to maximize profits from those ever-so-popular films? Or is that not cynical at all and in fact quite obvious? It's embracing of event-driven storytelling. I remember back in the 90s my Marvel reading friends teasing me about how heavily DC Comics seemed to lean on major company-wide crossover events to drive their stories and their sales. And they were right. If you look back at the history of both companies, from the early 90s up through about 2005, DC had such a major crossover event every year, pretty much, and Marvel only had 3, the Infinity Gauntlet and its 2 sequels. Well, so much for the good old days. Since 2005, Marvel has also had a major company-wide crossover event every year, and some of these events have been decently well regarded by fans, others not so much. But the point is, the Marvel that was all about story and character and not so much about the sales-pushing gimmicks is gone. Probably forever. The lack of a unifying creative vision. In the 60s, when Stan Lee wrote most of the major titles, the creative unity that resulted was one of the things that really set Marvel apart. Spider-Man and the Fantastic Four didn't just live in the same city, their stories were told with the same voice. And even though comic production back then was just as industrialized as it is now, the fact that one person was handling most of the plotting and the dialogue made those comics feel like they were the work of a single auteur, even though they weren't. About 15 years ago, Marvel tried to recreate that sense of creative unity and simplicity by starting a separate fictional universe from its mainline universe that was controlled by just a handful of writers and artists. And for a while it was pretty great. And then, well, you've probably guessed that I'm talking about the worn-out Ultimate line. Ultimate Marvel was conceived as a fresh start for some of the company's most famous characters, new versions of Spider-Man and the X-Men in a new, shared continuity. And then along came the Ultimate version of the Avengers, called the Ultimates. And even though the Ultimates was hailed as a great success critically and commercially when it debuted, I mark that as the beginning of the Ultimate line's long downward slide. Yes, the Ultimates was awesome when it debuted, but all of a sudden you had Ultimate versions of Iron Man and Captain America and the Hulk and a whole slew of other characters running around in the Ultimate Universe doing shit. And it wasn't very long before the Ultimate Universe began to feel just as crowded and convoluted as the main Marvel Universe that it had originally been created to serve as an alternative to. And that's unfortunate. But having said that, the Ultimate Universe version of Peter Parker, who is now dead, arguably wound up better off than his original Marvel Universe counterpart. The recurrent ruining of Spider-Man. Spidey is far and away my favorite Marvel character and is arguably the company's flagship hero. So why does Marvel Comics seem to hate the guy so much? I mean, look at all of the ill-conceived, potentially disastrous storylines that this guy has survived over the years. The Clone Saga, the revelation that Gwen Stacy had kids with the Green Goblin, his revelation of his secret identity to the public, the Faustian bargain he struck with Mephisto to erase that, and also erase his marriage to Mary Jane. I mean, fuck. It really makes you wonder who Spidey's arch enemies truly are. The Sinister Six? Or the motherfuckers writing him? The hardest part is only picking 5. Catch you next time.